Hey guys, it's Chad from EPI and Sean from EPI. We're in the R&D center. We're going to show you how to put a clutch kit or service your clutches on. This is a 2013 850 Sportsman. The 550 is pretty much the same, and the touring and the 2-ups and X2s and stuff like that are all pretty close to the same thing. But we'll show you how to do these on this and go from there. First thing you got to do, we got up and lift. You don't have to have it on a lift, but you want to pull your skid plate off. Just makes it easier getting to the clutch cover. There's a couple bolts underneath, and then just kind of snaps down from there. Once you get that off, you want to pull off your seat, which it's going to be hard to see. The reason to pull the seat off, there's 2 clutch cover bolts up in there. It's easier to get from the top. So pull those out, and then you want to go to the back machine, jack it up safely. We're on a lift, so we use some wood blocks and everything to get it the way you want. Once you get it up, you just want to get it high enough where you get the tire off, pull the lug nuts off. So you get the tire off, and then we like to put a wood block here just in case so it doesn't fall down on this. There'll be 4 bolts in this frame right here. Just take those off, set it aside. Then remove all the clutch cover bolts. Normally there's about 8 to 10 bolts all the way around in here. You just got to pull those out. Then just pull the clutch cover off. On some of the touring and the X2 models, sometimes it's easier to go down through the bottom depending on what year it is and stuff like that. But on most XPs it's just come right off through the side. Alright, now what you'll find is the clutches. This is going to be your primer or your drive clutch. This is directed directly to the motor. You got your secondary clutch or the driven clutch up here, and then your belt. One thing to always pay attention to when you're taking clutches apart and stuff is the belt. Right now this belt is on correct because you can read it from left to right, and you can actually read the numbers. The biggest thing is when you put a new belt on, you want it facing the same direction. If for some reason if you're taking apart and reusing your same belt, make sure however it's on there you put it on the same direction of what it has been running. Otherwise you have belt wear a lot faster. Another thing they'll do is on these in the Sportsmans and stuff, they'll give you this end of this kit, or this tool is in your tool kit. This is for your shocks. This is to help open up your clutch. And the easiest thing to do there is you just kind of put it in there like that, and you pry out. And what that does is open up the clutch, and that'll loosen up the belt here. We're going to leave it off for now because we'll pull the primary clutch off. Otherwise you can work it off through the top and stuff. So it makes it easier that way. And then we'll get into changing the rest of the stuff out. Alright, so when you go to pull off the primary clutch on the Sportsman's 850s and 550s, the primary clutch bolt is going to be left-hand threaded. So you got to do the opposite of what you normally do to take a bolt out. And what you want to do is use a small bar like what we got, or a really big screwdriver. And see this part here? You don't want to stick it through here. Plastic pieces slide up and down on this. You don't want to damage that at all. You want to get on the outside edges of these. So when you stick it through, just make sure you're not hitting on anything that way. And then you can either rest it on the frame or do whatever to bust it loose. Oops. It's not on there super crazy tight, but so once you break this loose, it's just a matter of getting the bolt out. One thing we have is every once in a while people call up and say the clutch puller won't fit in. It's usually because you left this piece in there, so just make sure you work that piece out. If it doesn't come out right away, just stick the bolt back in. Usually it'll work itself out if you go in there a couple times. And then this is the EPI clutch puller, the PCP12. Just thread that in. And that's normal right-hand threads on this because it threads into a different set of threads inside the clutch. And again, you have your bar through there to keep the clutch from rotating. And then you just tighten it up. You want to do it by hand, you don't want to use an impact. And what will happen is Sometimes it slides off, sometimes it actually pops off. But you'll be able to tell when it comes loose. There, it just kind of popped. Give it a couple extra turns just so you know you're good and free. So there, we're loose. Normally on these, for space wise, it's easier if you can thread the clutch puller out. Gives you a little more room to wiggle it out of there. We already loosened up the belt, and with the tool, we pried that in towards the transmission. It opens up the clutch, the belt goes down in the secondary, gives you a little more slack in there, makes it a little bit easier to work with. And then it's just a matter of pulling the clutch out like that, and there's your primary. Alright, so now we're going to take off the belt and the secondary. Again, just using the tool, it makes it loose in there. Let's pull the belt off. Pull your tool out. And then just loosen this nut. Sometimes it comes easy, sometimes it's a little bit harder to hold. Sometimes you might have to stick a bigger screwdriver in here just to kind of hold it in place from rotating. The big thing you gotta watch there is that you don't damage this plastic roller. You don't want to scar it up or flat it, spot it, or anything like that. You just stick a screwdriver in here to keep it from rotating. The clutches on the 550 and 850s are a little bit different depending on what year you have. If you have a 9 and 10, the clutch just comes right off with this bolt. If you got a 2011, 12, or 13, there's a different secondary clutch on it, and it has a lot more washers and stuff, and we'll show you as we get this off here. The big thing is to, when you take this off, keep track of all the washers, where they're located and how they go on. Also, some machines might have washers in the back of them, so just pay attention. But you got the two big washers, I don't know if you can see that in there, and then usually there's anywhere from 2 to 4 little washers stuck inside here too. This one looks like it has 3. Without blocking the camera, I can't get my head in there, but there's actually 4 little washers in there too. So you got to keep track of that, make sure you put them all in the right spot. Once you got those out, you know, just look in there and make sure you got the washers are all gone. And then this is a little pain in the butt. You got to pull the clutch off. Usually it's easiest to pull it out and then kind of twist up, and that'll allow it to get off the shaft. It's really tight in there. Sometimes you might need to wiggle these hoses and this wire harness and this out of the way. But it's just kind of, each one's going to be a little bit different. Oh, and I forgot to pull off the big washer. And then it's just a matter of pulling it out like that. It does come out. It's a pain in the butt, but it does come out. I'm actually fighting this hose. Do that right there. There. And it comes out. The other difference we'll show you on a 9 and 10, the clutch doesn't do this. On 11, 12, and 13 it does. Again, it's a different style clutch setup, but we'll show you how to take it apart. Alright, so now it's time to work on the secondary clutch. This is the EPI clutch compression tool. It's the CCT 510. We got it mounted in the vise. Just slide the clutch over it. Put the adapter on. This is another thing where it's a little bit different between the 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. On the 9 and 10 models, you would actually take these 4 bolts out and pull the Helix out and then put the clutch in. on the 2011, 12, and 13s, you actually, that's spring loaded. The spring tension is against that helix, so you can't just pull it out. What you want to do is throw it in the clutch compression tool. And you don't need a lot of tension on it, just enough to hold it in place. And then you remove these 4 Torx bolts. I got them all busted loose, but they got Loctite on them so they don't turn out real fast and easy. So once you pull the 4 bolts out, and then you just slowly let this up. One other thing to note, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the camera, if you're putting the stock stuff back together, there's an X right here, and there's an X here usually on the Helix. Most of the aftermarket Helixes won't have the X on them, but just to note that if you are taking apart the stock ones. And then it's just a matter, you can slowly and safely take that spring and Helix out here with the tool. And then it's just a matter of pulling this out. So there's your Helix. On your 2011 and newer ones, it's going to have this style. If you have a 2009 or a 2010, when you pull the Helix out, you'd pull the Helix out before you put in the tool, and there'll be a snap ring holding the spring and this part of it way down in there. So then you just, instead of clamping down on the Helix, you'd clamp down on that, pull off your snap ring, and then slowly let the spring out. Alright, so to put it back together, just put your spring in, make sure it seats flat in here and in the clutch. There's also an X on this place if you want to line them up with that, it works out good. Then put your Helix in, make sure you line it up so it's going into the proper area. And then slide on the adapter. And just slowly and carefully tighten her down. Again, this is the newer style. If you have a 9 or 10, you'd be doing just the spring and the spring cup, not the actual Helix. Same basic principle. And just tighten her down. Try to line up everything before you get it down tight. And I don't crank super hard on it, just that way the bolts will self-align themselves. And then you want to use blue Loctite on them. We're going to have this apart again later, so I'm not putting it on right now, but put blue Loctite on these bolts, otherwise they will back out and you'll lose them and wreck your clutch. And just install the 4 bolts and you're done. If it's the older style, you'd put your snap ring on to hold that retainer in, then just your Helix pops into place freely, bolt it in, and you're good to go. Alright, now we've got your primary clutch. We're going to use a clutch press here. If you don't have a clutch press, all you got to do is have one person compress down on it and hold it together as you take them off. If you don't have a press or a buddy there to help you, you can use the clutch compression tool. That'll do it nice and safe and easily so you don't wreck this bushing. But what you want to do is slowly just kind of rotate around and equally loosen up the bolts a little bit at a time so you don't get caught one way or another and damage this bushing in here. With this clutch press, the nice thing is it holds it down and it's flat on the shaft so you don't wreck nothing. You just remove the bolts. And actually, before you want to take it apart, what I always like to do is take and put an X on it. Put an X on the cover plate, on the spider, and the clutch, depending on how far you're taking it down. And that way you got 3 alignment marks, so you know you always get back together the same way it came apart. They are balanced from the factory, so you want to make sure you get them right when you put it back. Once you got that marked, take out the bolt. Pull your clutch cover off, and that'll get you to your spring. Once the spring is loose, then it's just a matter of, now you can work on it, you can clean it. Anytime you have your clutches off and apart, that's a good time to clean them. Blow them out really good, both the primary and the secondary clutch. It'll be full of black dust, just blow it out real good. Take and blow out all this real good. If it's really shined up, you can take an emery cloth or a Scotch-Brite and just go perpendicular to the center of the shaft and all the way around and work your way around. You don't want to put deep grooves in it, it's just kind of scuff off the glaze off there. And then you can blow it out and then take like a brake cleaner or contact cleaner on a rag and just wipe it down. This one's a brand new clutch, so it's nice and clean. But then to remove the weights, just use an Allen wrench and a wrench, and remove the bolt, remove this weight. This is the stock weight that comes in them, and then just repeat the process for the other ones. Alright, so put the new weights in. It's just like taking them out. Stick the bolt through. Bolt it in. Make sure it's tight. You always want to make sure the pivot loose and free too. Would be good there. And then it's just a matter of installing your spring. Make sure it seats flat. Line up your X's on your plate and on your clutch. Like that. And then either this one's got a short spring in it, so you can compress it down and tighten up the bolts so you're doing it nice and even. Or if you got a clutch press, makes it easy too. And it's just a matter of tightening all these bolts up. Once you get them tight, for the video of that, we won't go through the whole time of it, but then it's pretty much done. Once you tighten those up, you're good to go. Alright, so now we're going to go and install the secondary clutch on the 2011 newer clutches. I don't know if you can see down in there, but that hole's not centered right now. That's got the spline with the spring and everything inside it. It actually floats in there, so you can move around and just center it up a little bit. Just don't want to damage the bushing at all when you do it. But it doesn't have to be perfect, just get you close. It'll make it installing the clutch a little bit easier for you. And then it's kind of a pain just like getting it off. You might have to move the hoses around back and forth and stuff. But you just got to get the clutch in place. Slide it on the shaft. Sometimes if I have to switch gears, and it kind of pops into place there. You should see the shaft is almost out to the edge. And then again, this is the one that has all the little washers on it and stuff. Make sure they're on the bolt. There's 3 or 4 of them. There's 4 of them on this particular one. Put the big washers in the clutch and tighten them up. if you need to, you can put the screwdriver in that slot again. Again, being careful not to damage the roller or anything. Tighten it up. And then you want to get your belt. Make sure you can get it so you can read it. And just place it around the clutch. Like that. Make sure when you're putting it on that you're not getting it dirty or greasy or anything. Either from other parts of the machine or the shaft or anything. And then stick your tool in there. I know it's kind of hard to see in here. It's kind of compact, but stick your tool in there, open it up, and just pull that belt down in there. That works pretty good. If you want a little extra room, again, you can take your screwdriver carefully and just pry in there, and that'll open it up even farther. Most time it's not needed, especially on a used belt where it's stretched a little bit more. And then to get the primary clutch in there, work it around the belt, and then put it on the crankshaft. Remember, this bolt's left threaded. And you want to torque this one to the factory specs, which that will tell you in the instructions. Most of them are at 47 to 50 pounds on the Polarises. So then to torque it down, again, make sure you watch where you put your bar through, and just got to tighten it up. It's torqued into place. Now you're good to go. If the belt is stuck way down in the clutch, just spin the clutch around. You might need to put it neutral, or you can spin it backwards sometimes, just so it's reset close to the top of that, so it doesn't screw anything up when you first go to take off. And then it's getting the clutch cover on and putting the rest of it back together. So now, get the clutch cover installed, put on your frame piece back in, bolt up your tire, and you're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Go out and ride it and see how everything works.